You're listening to We Deepen Media.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Deepen with Christina. I'm your host, Christina Weber, founder and CEO of We Deepen, Feminine Weapon, and also a certified professional coach and intuitive matchmaking. If you haven't lately, go check out wedeepen.com and you can see all types of upcoming social and transformational experiences. Click on that social calendar link. It'll take you to a page. You can create a profile, log in, see those programs. You have a lot of really fun activities coming up, multi-day events. There is a retreat, a love boat retreat happening in Croatia in September. Also in September, Relationship Renegades are doing a playground retreat in Costa Rica. Bakde Love Reunion Festival is happening in October. That's a multi-day festival event in California. And today you're going to get to meet Eva Clay, who is one of the co-creators of Deep Dance, which is an ecstatic dance type experience happening every Saturday in the Los Angeles area. We'll get into that today. You can see that on the We Deepen calendar. Yeah, and I'm going to be adding some new experiences. And today is also in the topic of simplicity, which is really coming to mind when I even think about my business. And I know a lot of you have been listening, have been following me on this entrepreneur journey to make sense, make sense of this passion that I have for love and relationships, and to see human beings getting more along with one another and thriving in their love lives. And, my genius has been around networking. I'm sort of like this love liaison where I bring together the people who want thriving, loving relationships and connect them with the facilitators of experiences and teaching and mentorship that can help you thrive in relationship. Most people didn't grow up observing healthy relationships, and the topic being completely neglected in our educational curriculum. And I see this as the most important aspect of their life when I'm in conversations privately. If you ever see me out in a social scene, which, yes, I do love recording this podcast with you, but what I enjoy most is being together with you in real life. And one of the questions I love to ask is, how's your love life? Why talk about the weather, anything surface? I want to go deep and hear about what you're experiencing relationally. So this, the topic of simplicity is not only coming or percolating in my mind around business and We Deepen, it's also, a theme in my personal relational life. So we're going to get into that today. If you do enjoy this podcast, please do subscribe, follow, give it 5 stars. It helps more people find it, helps me continue to do it, bring more people into the We Deepen ecosystem so you can meet them and play with them and have experiences. Speaking of experiences, I know I just shared about someone, but one other experience I want to mention right now is Mystery Temple. There is a Mystery Temple happening in the Los Angeles area on July 22nd. Yosef Sagi runs that experience, and it is a space that you can go and you can receive a level of sexual education, from experience to wisdom and knowledge base, and just be an observer of. And because that is one of the topics that I find, one of my interns recently, she is in college, and I asked her, how was sex ed for you? And she told me that, sex ed was pretty much in 9th grade. And this is a current college student, but sex ed for her was 1 month in 9th grade that was super awkward. So I know that most of us, I mean, the reason that I want to be in relationship primarily is to have fucking amazing sex. And right. And there's times, when I'm single, I'm not one who I love, I've been enjoying this new trend of conscious play parties is what it's called, or sex parties. And I'm not one that walks into a sex party and like, everybody put their hands all over me and I'm going to orgasm and all the things. No, I like to be in the essence of it and be in the observer of it and to learn about sexuality. And I'm even surprised at 42 that the things that I continue to unfold and uncover that I didn't know before until now. So these types of experiences in the adult play party scene, especially when the consciousness is engrossed into and Eva, who I'm going to introduce momentarily. I know she's been in her own exploration throughout her career and also personal life. And, there is a lot out there around like the swinger scene and the kinky scene and BDSM. And there's a high level of consciousness in some areas. And of course, in every industry or sector of the world, there's charlatans and darkness that also is within the light-filled experiences. So Mystery Temple is one of those places that you can go to explore in a more of a conscious way. And I'll say too, from if I was maybe in my 20s, that would be even a more enlivened experience for me that I might play a little bit more deeply in. I don't know, because in my 20s, I was living in New York City, watching Sex and the City and drinking alcohol and, bumping into strange sexual scenes through, the party scene of New York City. Okay, let's jump into it. Eva, I'm so grateful to be working with you again and collaborating because we got to do some of that pre-pandemic. And now that you've, formulated this partnership with, I think 4 of you have come together to facilitate deep dance in Los Angeles. And I'll say, I think that you guys all were ones who attended the 5 Rhythms that used to take place every Saturday at Soho Dance. And it's no longer happening. And I loved that experience. And now you've taken it over. And what I loved about 5 Rhythms too, and different than a lot of the other ecstatic dances, is that there is a simplicity to it. It's like it's taking you on a journey. And I love the slowness and the presence. That's where I think simplicity is too. So welcome to Deepen with Christina. And also, as I'm introducing you, Eva Clay, she's a mentor of mine. She posts amazing content on social media around sex, love, and relationship. And I'm so grateful for all your work. You're a somatic psychotherapist and also a sexologist. And so lots of wisdom. And I learn from you in every moment. Thank you for how you show up in the world and for joining me on this episode.
Thank you, Christina. I so appreciate you as the super connector that you are. Thank you for doing what you do.
Thank you. Thank you. Let's start with, give me a little bit of some deep dance. Let's go to deep dance first, and then we'll dive into simplicity and sex.
Yay. Yes. Okay. First of all, I just want to say up front that when you told me we're going to talk about simplicity, I'm like, I have never been associated with simplicity in my life, but I have a translation to offer you when we get to that topic. Deep dance is this magical creation that me and 3 friends got together to create. And our beloved teacher, Kate Shella, who taught for many years in the LA area, still does, but she moved to London for family reasons. And we were live streaming her classes all through the pandemic when she went on to Zoom. And I decided one day, well, let's get together and dance in the park and stream her classes. So a big group of us would get together every Saturday morning and listen to her through our own phone. And it just kind of evolved into this big thing. And then we decided we need to get a space, actually an indoor space to dance together. And in doing that, Deep Dance was born. And then Kate decided to move away, and there was this big void in the community. And now I really want to credit Kate Shella for building this community. We kind of stepped in to a vacancy, and she built it, really, and we are continuing it. So I want to credit her. I also want to credit her for her own movement modality that she developed, which is called the 360 emergence, which is an evolution of 5 rhythms. So just want to, say that up front. And if you want more information about Kate or her work, you can find her at kateshella.com. So Deep Dance is a totally grassroots, community sourced event. It's been very successful. We're getting like 100 people coming, which is so hard to do in LA if you've ever produced events in LA. But I think part of the magic of it is that we choose facilitators, we choose DJs, our whole team is based on who's already in the community as a contributor and who can we cultivate to step into more leadership within the community. So there's not a lot of ego that we have around this. It's totally collaborative and inclusive. And that frequency really translates. And having done a conscious dance event for many years previously in LA, I was very much the face of that. And I wanted to have an experience where I was not front and center in the creation. I was one of many. And I think that's an appropriate thing to do as you mature, is you want to begin to cultivate the next generation of leaders. And so the leadership is shared. And, we're very democratic about everything we do, and it's so fun. So that's how it came to be. And I would invite any listener to come and check us out and experience it for yourself. And along the lines of simplicity, Christina, when I heard you said that, I told you I had this reaction of like, me, simplicity? How am I going to talk about simplicity? But when I heard you go deeper with it, what I'm actually hearing is subtlety. And subtlety is something that I've so been jamming on for the last decade. And that's something so beautiful about Deep Dance, is that we really do cover all of the levels of intensity and excitement and relaxation, upregulation, downregulation, in the full wave of the experience in our container. So you mentioned your favorite parts of it were the slow parts. So there's a magic and a power in that field of subtlety that we are so lacking in our culture. What spaces do we have where we come and we move so slowly that we can actually feel everything in our body? I think that's magic.
It's actually, the Playful Portal, which Jet Eveleth and I have created for the biohacking conference. I mean, people are going to listen after we've taken it to the biohacking conference, but we've done a couple rehearsal runs, and I do one this weekend. And it is, there's magnet work inside of that. And magnet work is like people practice, like we put on a slow song and they come close to each other and then they walk away from each other. Mm-hmm. And there's this experience of Jet comes out of, or is coming to us after facilitating an experience called Clown Church for years. And that's even what clown is a mixture of improv meets emotional intelligence or Taoist philosophy. And one of the things I'll say in the, I'm having a beautiful relational experience right now. And this human, when I'm with him, he's so present, where it's so, that's why I'm very much attracted to this human, is the deep set of presence that happens in that. And I love the slowness and the slow down in life. And so I'm aiming to, all around, how do I keep, kind of, especially when we live in an era where there's so much coming out at us all of the time, from try this, do that, take this step, watch this video, listen to this talk. And there's you gather all this information, but then even having the time to process or still, in medicine ceremonies, as we call it, integration. And I almost want to look at another word for it is like I love subtlety and also of a constant process of integrating life instead of keep piling more and more on top of it.
Mm-hmm. It's like you have to digest the meal you just ate before you eat another one, or else you're just stuffing yourself. I think we're all kind of stuffing ourselves on information and stimulation.
One of the reasons that I thought of you to talk about the topic of simplicity with, number one, it was coming up for me last night. I read Gene Key 23, which is the way of simplicity. And so it's percolating forefront in my mind. Then you're on my calendar to record this podcast today. And I also have been thinking back to when I did see you the last time at Deep Dance. We were talking about relationship dynamics, and it was a very short dialogue, but you had said something of, I don't do polyamory anymore. I'm in a monogamous relationship. And I have been conceptually and tiny little bits of like experientially exploring the idea of polyamory. And I have always, looked at it from afar. Who I've seen do it best tend to be career polyamory experts. Like they're the ones, because they've committed their whole life is to do it and to teach people how to do it. And so they're good at doing it because that's what they do for a living. However, and then at the same time, generally, I find that the recruitment of polyamory usually comes from a man, as they're, hitting on you at the same time. And so I've kind of been a witness to it, but not really fully interested in it. And then, this human showed up in my life, and so I've been trying out, but it's almost like we're dating. It's like, I also look at, polyamory as this experience of dating. You're dating somebody to get to a place. You might be dating multiple people at the same time. And how do you be more authentic and transparent and really let the other person get to know you and why you're having all these other experiences? So when I heard you say, I used to do that and I don't do that anymore, that was also my observation as well of experts within, the intimacy industry, is that a lot of them kind of came out to that other side, back to monogamy as well. And I have to think that there's some type of correlation to simplicity or subtlety that that goes into that choice of like, oh, that's not for me anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Let me talk about that then. And I'm going to kind of weave simplicity and subtlety together. I think that there are distinctions to them, but they also pair well. And I first want to say that I don't have any stance necessarily about polyamory or monogamy. Like, I don't have any compunctions about either way of doing relationship. What I love about the time we're living in now is that we're seeing that we have choice, and everybody can have their own stripe, and that can change at different intervals in their life. And I like that we are breaking out of the dominant paradigm of monogamy only. And I think that's a really important move culturally. And it was an important move in my life also. And my backstory is that I was in a monogamous marriage for close to a decade. And it was a beautiful, amazing, wonderful marriage from 30 to 40, basically. And toward the end of my marriage, we were in the cultural context of open relationships. And now, when you say that who you see succeeding at polyamory are career polyamorists who like, this is what they live and breathe and do. I want to add to that typically they're living in a polyamorous village, like their whole reality, their construct, their communities are practicing polyamory and doing it well. And there's support for that. And there's also resource and availability. So they're like fishing in the polyamory pond. They're practicing ethical non-monogamy with lots of other people or couples that are also practicing ethical non-monogamy. Go onto Field and you'll find plenty of that. And I have friends who are succeeding incredibly at ethical non-monogamy and dating on Field. And it's not for everybody. So just as our world is beginning to expand to be more inclusive of things like gender and breaking out of old stereotypes, we are also breaking out of the one size fits all of monogamy. So my journey around it was coming out of this monogamous marriage. I very much wanted to have ethical non-monogamy. I wanted to explore and have multiple partners. And I did that. And I kind of dove in head first. And what I learned is that it's really not my stripe. It really didn't align for me and my body. And in part, because I'm like you, Christina, I go to a play party and I don't actually like to participate in play parties, but I'm like the magical fairy that goes around sprinkling fairy dust on everybody and just kind of enjoying being in the essence. And you'll probably find me dancing. You'll find me on the dance floor usually. But I like to be in the essence of freedom. But I found that having so many multiple lovers or multiple relationships was too much traffic on my system. And because I had begun to titrate my system out of the intensity of having multiple relationships and multiple lovers and experiences was so intense on my system. And I began to study Tantra at that time. And Tantra allowed me to dial down my appetite for intensity and to deeply savor and enjoy subtlety. And so I found a whole new world with a massive space and spectrum of sensation and pleasure and depth with one partner. But I had to train my system to find that. And most people have not gone through that training to find the immense joy of a simple sensation. And our world is training us in the opposite direction. We are so overstimulated, hyperstimulated, social media, everything is, and I see that rolling into the way that we relate because we're like this hungry ghost, like we're never satisfied. And I don't want to make a generalization about ethical non-monogamy or polyamory. Many people are dialed into the subtlety of relating, but I find a lot are not in those communities also, that there's this hunger, more intensity, dopamine hits, newness, new relationship energy all the time, more lovers, more pleasure, more orgasms, etc. And it's feeding a kind of addictive cycle. And I saw a lot of that. This is anecdotally, okay? So again, not saying everyone is in that tribe. But for my journey, I love waking up to a new man every day with my one partner.
Can you speak to me about how the journey of training your system to find, I want to use the word simplicity, but that's not the word that you used, to find the deeper presence, or to not be seeking the intensity?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I had blown out my system to such a degree where, there's this funny, very politically incorrect expression in that world at that time, which was like, Roland, send in the midgets. Like how intense Do you need things to be, I find a lot of times this happens in like the BDSM world where you need more and more sensation, more and more stimulation. With pornography, you need more and more edge and taboo. And I had blown my system out to a point where I was like, where do you go from here? And is this really nourishing for me? Is this really satisfying my soul? And it wasn't. I just felt fried. When you've like scrolled Instagram for too long and your brain like, you don't feel good. Your body starts to tell you I'm overwhelmed. And so for me, my training in that subtlety had to come from a full stop in relating in sexuality. And I did celibacy for 1 year. No dating, no sex, no nothing for 1 year. And I had to sort of reset my circuitry. Now, I'm not saying you need to do that. I chose to do that for, other spiritual reasons as well. But I think having a little bit of a fast, like when I work with clients, sometimes we'll do like a 30-day fast on dating apps, which are also hugely, massively addictive, by the way, and detoxify your system. And then for me, it came really from studying and practicing Tantra with my teacher, Don Cartwright, and sitting in circle where I was guided and taught to notice barely imperceptible features of an experience and to sense it with my energy body. To feel it, to breathe it, to name it is important, and then to enjoy it. So it takes the brain 20 seconds to fully savor something, an experience, an object, a person, 20 seconds of resting your attention on any aspect of your experience. And then your brain will wire that in as a pleasure. So if you smell a flower, smell it for 20 seconds and focus on that smell. This could be an essential oil. This could be a particular way you move your body. Doesn't matter. So doing that enough times begins to reroute those neural pathways and to reset the neurochemistry and the dopamine circuits in the brain to actually notice subtle stimulation. So for me, it came from practice. And it took about like another year of tantric practice and internal awareness and embodiment and somatic work to begin getting off on subtlety and simplicity. And like, it brings me so much joy and pleasure. And my orgasms begin to change, and the way, how easy it is for me to experience pleasure and orgasm changed. And it helped me to begin attuning actually to energy and not just intensity. So like that magnet exercise you're talking about, how to begin actually noticing and feeling energy between myself and another person. When you're able to do that as a result of your practice and your study, oh man, like a whole new world of intimacy becomes available to you.
And that magnet work exercise, and we do that in two different activities at the Playful Portal. And people share afterwards that they feel as though they've gotten into relationship and broke up in relationship like many times throughout that, because you practice coming together and then turning away from the person. And because, the music that we play and the slowness of the experience, like you're taking that person in for it is definitely over 20 seconds. You're taking them in and then you're releasing them. And that's also something that I see as this gripping or attachment, like gripping to finding something that you enjoy and wanting to hold on to it and not release it. There's a documentary that like a piece of it, of this documentary, The Keepers of the Light, that a friend of mine had sent me a while back. It was like this one clip, and there's a Peruvian shaman who is sharing about in their culture that when a woman starts to be 13, that if she is engaging with a man that she believes may be her husband, or they may fall in love, they teach her that to be very gentle with her heart, and that he is, they say, is he will not grow from your shoulder. He will either die or he will leave you for another woman. And it sounds so, oh my God, die or leave me for another woman. Mm-hmm. But it's starting to train from a young age, this idea of living life unattached. And I think that's part of the coming together and releasing another being. I think in the training too, as you mentioned, like the smelling the flower and those 20 seconds, I also think of like one easy way to do that is we eat every day. And so often we just pile the food in our mouth and eat it really quickly, and just taking that moment and shutting your eyes for the 20 seconds to really just be present with your food can start to shift the neural networks in your brain and slow you down for a moment.
Exactly. That's a mindful way of eating and a mindful way of being. I mean, we could also really just name this as mindfulness, being mindful in your relating. And, I think there, are so many incredible benefits to doing that, because you stop needing so much. Like you're talking about, you're less attached. And now we're not talking about attachment in terms of your attachment style. We're talking about when we use relationship or sex or even just experience to complete us or to fill a void. That's when sometimes we eat non-nutritive foods, like we have relationships with no nutrients in it. And we waste our time, or we just set ourselves back, or we pick the wrong person. We waste their time. We break hearts. So that's what I would call relationship drama. That's not simplicity. That's using the complexity to instigate drama in your life. And we could look at like the many reasons underlying why people unconsciously or consciously create drama relationally, to avoid pain, to avoid something, to avoid being alone, to excite themselves. I work with a lot of people who are dating. I see them behind the scenes. You have no idea what I see. It's beautiful and amazing, but I see a lot of people dating behind the scenes who are on the dating apps and should not be on the dating apps, who are dating for sport, pretending to date for a relationship, but they are no way, shape, or form dating for a relationship. So I think sometimes there's this entertainment factor and stimulation, because we need more and more stimulation to feel okay and to feel whole. And when we can entrain in this practice of subtlety, we no longer need that. And our relationships begin to actually nourish us. They have nutrients, and we give and we receive much more.
If looking back in hindsight of, having been married for a decade, releasing that relationship, and then, venturing into this journey, I imagine there's so much learning that, we frame it as polyamory, but sometimes when people tell me they're polyamorous, I'm like, oh, you're dating. That's what you want to experience and rediscover of what you want. Can you kind of look into what maybe if somebody was going through that experience of ending a long-term relationship and getting back out there, is there some things that you can think of, if I had only known this?
Oh, so many things. I think if I had only known how to receive love, how to actually really receive that. And I think, for me, in my case, and this might be true for others who are listening, that I had to have multiple partners and multiple experiences a lot of the time, and a lot of excitement, because I wasn't actually receiving love. And so it's kind of like, let's use this metaphor of eating. If your body is not able to absorb nutrients, it makes you insatiably hungry. So you're like, eat all the time, because your body's not actually absorbing vitamins and minerals. And that's a little bit what it was like for me. And the reason mainly I did not know how to receive love is because it's cliche, but I wasn't loving myself. So the love coming my way had nowhere to land. It had no frequency match. And so I just needed more until I realized like that was actually not serving my life or serving anybody I was relating with, and had to come to a full stop. So if I had known at that time how to slow down, how to breathe, how to reaffirm my worthiness for love, and to actually let it into my heart, then I probably would not have needed that level of drama and stimulation that I sought for a while.
Fascinating. I'm having so many epiphanies and realizations in this moment that everything that you're saying feels just so true. It's like I very much resonate with the book Kabbalah on Love. It shaped my relationship with love because I had a confusing experience when I was 17, and my dad sitting me on the steps of our house as my parents were going through their separation/divorce, and him telling me that he didn't love my mom anymore. And I thought, how could, the man that I love most not love the woman that I love most? And they created me, and this is really confusing. And I think my dad at the time, I now, 20 years later, have gotten him to, I don't know if he's true, but I've gotten him to a place where he tells me that he does love my mom, even though they've been, separated for 20 years. But it's essentially, he didn't want to be in a relationship anymore. But that's different than love. Yeah. How would you, like if you were to look at love and relationship, what is the difference there for you?
Between love and relationship?
Yeah.
So, that's a great question because, I'm going to parlay it into something I've really been jamming on. And that's the difference between love and partnership. And as I've matured and my relationships have evolved to become, better and more powerful and empowering, I'm finding I'm, seeking and enjoying different qualities in a partner. And I am partnered now. I have a wonderful partner now who's like the best partner I've ever had. And no longer am I seeking or needing necessarily the stimulation of the emotional intensity. And for myself, I tend to be an emotionally intense person. If you know the Enneagram, I'm a type 4. So we're like the super hardcore romantics. And I have begun to phase out of that, partly just from maturing and partly the personal work that I do, that I don't need the drama anymore to make me feel complete or to get high off of that. What actually I want is a solid partner who carries these qualities I'm looking for. Does he show up? Is he committed? Is he authentic? Is he truthful? Is he solid in his life? And I've started to look at relationships more as like a facilitation. And what I mean by that is I see my partner as a facilitator of the life that I'm looking to create for myself. And I'm his facilitator of the life he wants. And so we are co-facilitating this adventure together for each other and ourselves. But he's a facilitator for me to find and experience and expand my relationship with God, my relationship to life itself, to life force, my relationship to my body and my pleasure and my wellness. To me, they're all one and the same. And so I would like to see more people dating that way, to unhook from the roller coaster and to begin realigning, to reset. And part of this comes through our relationship with subtlety / simplicity. And part of this is, what is the life you're looking to create? What is the life you're actively building for yourself? And what type of partner is going to be a contributor to that life for you? I think that most of us, women especially, I'm sorry to generalize, but it tends to be true, get on the romance train. That we fall in love and our emotions begin to hijack us, and our oxytocin and all the chemicals hijack our frontal cortex and our discernment and our critical thinking. And we make choices that aren't actually aligned with the life we want for ourselves and the partner who has no capacity to co-facilitate the life that we want. And yet we're hooked on him. And we're not actually hooked on him. We're hooked on the emotions that the relationship stimulates for us. I'm going to say that again. We're not actually hooked on him. We're hooked on the emotion that the relationship stimulates for you. So if you can begin to look at your partners, even the people you're dating, even casually, as a facilitator of some sort for you, I would encourage you to ask yourself this question: what is it that they're actually facilitating for me? What parts of me do they bring forward? How do they add to my life? What opportunity do they present for me? Not only materially, but emotionally, spiritually, psychologically. I've dated people in my past that I knew had no potential as like a life partner for me, but they facilitated some kind of growth or an exercise for me. So let's take the polyamory example, since we're kind of jamming on that today. I did have polyamorous relationships where I knew, like, this is going to be temporary, but I'm going to sit inside the fire of my triggers and my jealousy, because I know this is an edge for me to work. And I'm going to be with this polyamorous dude for a minute so that I can work these edges. And when I'm complete, I will say goodbye.
Couple questions and things coming to mind is when you've been in those connections, sitting in the fire with somebody that you're having a polyamorous experience with, and this is not from a it's hard because, I know, as we say, the flavor is not for everybody, and who are we to judge in what's best for somebody else or not best. I mean, I think that we all get to choose experiences in our life that help to catapult some type of growth, as you said, some type of lesson that's being learned. I find, if I even take myself back to I think we met around this one relationship that I had with somebody who I met at Burning Man. And then we went and lived in Bali together for a month. And I came out of that relationship studying narcissism. Because I'm like, this was like such a strange experience. And what is that? And now, probably like 4 years out of that, I can reflect back on that, and I have different perspectives around I think I needed to go through to detach from it, that judgmental lens of this was a narcissist, or I think it's more of like the experience of our dynamic together created what felt like a narcissist's approach. When I go and read all the textbooks on narcissists, that makes sense. So I'm going to bucket that into that specific category. But I remember in that relationship, when we connected initially, I had shared, I'm pretty much monogamous. And for me, monogamy is really, I don't even necessarily love the terminology around these, these words. Like, for me, it's like energy and how you spend your energy and focus is really important to me. Energy conservation, like, it seems, it's too chaotic, like exactly the traffic on my soul, like subtle, not much traffic on my soul. I like excitement, and I like to have fun and be in ecstatic bliss and to try new things and have experiences. But I want to sleep peacefully at night. And And so in this experience, this human met me in the, yeah, I want that too. And I've had lots of other guys like, yeah, I want that too. And then I start dating them and then it switches. There's something of like inside of them that maybe some fear arises around, oh, fuck, I'm now standing still with someone. This is scary. So I need to go out and seek other, potentially maybe for contrast purposes. And I don't want to necessarily judge these experiences, but sometimes that the men that I've had these, I can look back and I can think, I don't even know if they're really poly. I think they're confused.
That's great. Yeah. Yeah. Right. I think that's where we get into trouble with labels. I do know people that I would say like carry the poly chip. They're like by nature non-monogamous, and they're so happy being non-monogamous, and they can't even fathom being monogamous. And for the most of us, we're operating in a spectrum, and that preference or that choice for that lifestyle can change. It will change relationship to relationship and over time, and maybe monogamish. And I think that that's the new kind of fluidity that we're now welcoming culturally in, is not one size fits all. So regarding your guys that suddenly decide they want to be poly or they want to open the relationship, like who knows really what's going on with them? And I'm sorry you had that experience, because that's painful. I've had that too. And it's really painful to hear that. And I look at it more.
And I'll say, by the way, just real quick, is the painfulness. The painfulness was more of their lack of acknowledgement around it, and me observing the behavior and questioning the behavior, and then being met with their confusion around the behavior and not the this is my truth. I mean, I would love to live in a world where the terms cheating and infidelity were completely eradicated, because everybody was their full, truthful, authentic self in each moment. Mm-hmm. I think that where from a receiving end of that, it's when the presentation is off. I'm like, you're saying one thing, but you're doing the opposite thing. And when I ask and try to start conversation around, it's met with a level of uncomfortability, and I don't want to go there and talk about that. So there's like I think that there's that's where the energetics start to get like I opt out because I'm like,
good choice.
This is good choice
because
confusing.
There's not because there's not integrity and self-awareness there. It's like they're grasping for something outside of you. Yeah, that's really hard.
And I in coaching school, they taught us around setting your values, and that when people set their values, that they will set fear-based values or conscious-based values. So fear-based values, and I see a lot of that people coming out of long-term relationships of, when you're dating over 35, you tend, we're all coming with some relational history into that experience. And so I see this one with men, often successful men are like, I'm not mixing finances anymore. Like no more partnership with finances. I'm sovereign in my finances. Mm-hmm. Okay. That's, sure. Okay. Another can be around, monogamy, I think can be a fear-based value, or being an open can be a fear-based value, because I did monogamy once before and that didn't work. So I'm not doing that. I'm not getting trapped again into something. How does one recognize the difference between fear-based values versus conscious-based values?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I want to say also that monogamy can be a fear-based choice.
True.
So how do you tell the difference between a conscious choice and a fear-based choice? I don't know that I totally love that model of it's one or the other, but look at your nervous system. And what's the level of anxiety or upregulation you feel around that choice? Like, where is your excitement level? I'll go with this construct of a conscious choice tends to bring about a sense of calm. Same when you're choosing a partner or you're dating someone and they just make you feel calm and safe, not bored, but like you feel secure in that connection. You feel like you're not obsessing about them all the time. You're not anxious about, are they going to text you back? You're not wondering where they are. You're not hanging, they don't leave you hanging. There's security and groundedness in your system when you're with them and when you think about them. My partner now, it's weird. We talk about this, like we hardly think about each other during the day because we're doing our thing. And it's like, we're so solid and it's such a calm, secure relationship. And it frees up my energy to get so much more done. And that facilitates a life that I want. A fear-based choice will cause a lot of intensity and excitement in your system. Now, I think this is what's really important to learn how to discern is what is excitement and what is anxiety. And there's a wonderful quote, I think it's in The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks, which is an amazing little book. But he says the only difference between excitement and anxiety is a breath. So does the person you're dating excite you and bring you more alive? Does it make your genius come online? Are you super excited to see them? Or are you actually anxious? Does it cross that threshold of like, I don't feel safe. I don't feel good. This doesn't feel good to me to date you. It's anxious, but it's not good.
I could talk to you all day. I know we're nearing the end of this recorded session, and I would love to hear, how did you and your partner meet? What's this relationship? What's this origin story?
It's so sweet. We actually met on Bumble. Okay, so I want to say we are a dating app success story. We both were on Bumble for like a week. This is coming out of pandemic. And, I had a lot of like misgivings about going on the dating apps. I've never dated on the dating apps before. And here I am like a sex and love expert and I'm going on a dating app. What's going on? And is there going to be any guy for me there, even remotely? But I decided like the only way I'm going to meet somebody is by going on the apps because just nobody's gathering in person. And like, the older you get, it kind of like, I don't know, people my age don't really hang out the way that we used to in your 30s and 40s. Anyway, that's another story. But I went on the apps and I saw his profile and right away he was different. He totally stood out to me and he was so genuine and authentic. And there was one line in his profile. He said, I'm looking for a deep experience of love. And I was like, that guy right there. That's what I'm looking for. That's what I want. That's the kind of language I want to hear. And he's very good looking, but it was really more about his authentic expression that caught my eye. And so, we met very quickly, didn't really text much or even talk on the phone, just got together right away. And it was a complete match.
Wow. I love that. And I understand too I feel sometimes like having studied love and relationships for nearly a decade, to be met in relationship is sometimes it feels like, is that even, can anyone meet me in this? So in this connection, do you feel met by him?
Great question. Let's talk about that because I don't know about you, but I love this show, Indian Matchmaker. Uh-huh. Have you been watching that?
I have watched that one. And also 2 episodes ago, Harmony from Jewish Matchmaking was on the podcast.
Cool. Okay. Well, there's this line in Indian Matchmaker. I'm obsessed with this show. It's so cute. But the matchmaker, she says 60 to 70% that you must match with your partner, 60 to 70%, and to expect that it's not going to be 100% match. I think the older I've gotten and the wiser I've become, I understand that. And the question I ask about a partner is, does he have the makings? Does he have the desire? Does he have the intentionality? Does he want to move in the direction I'm moving in? Do I want to move in his direction? So my partner and I, we don't agree on everything, actually we have some really big differences. I'm a big fan of polarity, of progressive polarity. And, I'm a tantrika and I love the masculine feminine dynamics. And he absolutely abhors it. He hates it and thinks he calls it sexist bullshit. So we're in completely different camps about polarity. So like, how do we meet there? So we have figured out how to build a bridge and meet each other's needs when it comes to polarity, really. And so he meets me absolutely because he has the inner makings and the desire to grow in the same direction that I want to grow in, but we're not identical. And there are ways that we provoke each other and we disagree with each other. It kind of makes the relationship exciting in that regard. But I think most importantly is I want, and I think most of your listeners, including you, will want a partner who's willing to grow with you. So that's the number one ingredient to me. Are they willing to grow? Are they curious? Are they interested? And, I dated a handful of guys on the dating apps and, I kind of like, I'm mostly a humble person, but I also think I'm a catch.
You are, for sure.
And I dated guys who were like, they didn't think I was a catch at all. They were like, pass, like 1 day pass, 2 days pass, drop off the face of the earth, ghost me, whatever. And I'm like, what the fuck? Oh my God, you've got like a sex goddess on your hands. And they just weren't into it. And my guy saw me like one of the first things he said to me was, you've got something going on. There's something special about you. I don't know what it is, but I see it. And so I think, especially for women, if you can match with a man who sees you, who sees your beauty and your gifts and what you have to offer, I guess for men too, if your woman can see what you're bringing, what you offer, that's a really important step one.
Last question before then you do your final shares. Who are your relationship role models? Who have you learned most from?
In many ways, my parents, who didn't have a perfect relationship by any stretch, I would say there was a lot of dysfunction, but the thing my parents had was commitment to each other. They were married for 52 years before my mother passed 5 years ago. And that level of devotion to family wired in me, that's a blueprint that I operate from. But generally, couples that I admire are in the growth process together. It's not about how long they last or what they look like necessarily. Because you look at like Will and Jada Smith, I think that they split. I think they split or they got back together, something like that. But they've been in that growth process and they've been transparent with each other and with the world about what it's like to be in a fucking relationship. Like, it's not pretty. It can be very messy. Esther Perel, certainly, and her husband. Wow. Imagine their relationship.
I don't know too much about their relationship. I want to know more about their relationship.
I think not everyone knows very much about their relationship, but they keep it private. And that's another thing I've learned. I do not splash my relationship on social media. You will never see me post about my relationship anymore. I used to do that. I never do that anymore because I want to protect it from outside opinions about it. That's been a really important move.
God, I can relate to a lot of this stuff. I know what real quick in okay. 1 minute, why did your first marriage end?
We completed our contract. We each had one thing that we couldn't live with in the other. We just could not accept. And on my end, I'll start with his end. On his end, he could not accept my desire to be sex positive, not necessarily to like be monogamous or open the marriage, although I did kind of want to do that. But I wanted to live in a more sex positive framework than he was willing to. And on my end, I couldn't live with his temper.
And did you not want to have children?
I never really wanted to have kids. No.
You never wanted to have kids?
Not really. I was a stepmother for that time. And I have a wonderful stepdaughter that I love dearly and infinitely. And we actually became closer after the split. So I got to have that experience.
Oh, you have a bonus daughter.
I do have a bonus daughter.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Eva, for all the work that you do in the world and for being somebody that I feel I can go to with anything. And even you and I have having vulnerable discussions in our relationship at times. And just even that is you represent this level of safety and truth and honesty. And I'm so grateful to be able to see you out in the world. And it doesn't even need to be through us connecting, it's like you're like a role model that many other people, I think many other women and humans, whether old or young, are impacted by your presence that don't even need to be standing in a room with you to experience you. So thank you for that.
I received that. Thank you. Thank you, Christina. Yeah.
And if you're interested in going to a deep dance and meeting Eva Clay in person, you can check out WeDeepen.com. Deep Dance is there, happening nearly every Saturday in the Los Angeles area. And Eva, you also do private client work, group coaching, or even one-on-one coaching. And maybe it's not even coaching because you do somatic healing and therapy as well. And anything that you want to share there?
Come find me at evaclay.com. You can also follow me on Instagram. I'm Eva Clay, and you'll find all kinds of goodies there about sex and love. Yay.
Perfect. I'll put that in the description so you can click straight to Eva's profile and her website from the show notes. Thank you, Eva.
Love you dearly.
Love you. Thank you all for tuning in to another episode of Deepen with Christina. Again, if you do enjoy this podcast, please do like, subscribe, give it 5 stars. It helps more people find it, helps me continuing to record it. Check out that calendar at WeDeepen.com. I would love to see you in person soon. Bye for now. Mwah.